Ethan here from Investing Note. How's everybody doing today? All right. Let's just give us a few minutes. Hope you guys had your dinner ready. So, of course, today's topic will be about thematic investing in two mega trends, right? Cloud computing and solar energy. Let's just give our audiences a few more minutes. Okay, joining us with this webinar, we have both Adrian and Mark. Adrian and Mark, you can say hi first.
Hi, everyone.
Good evening, everybody.
Cool. Awesome. All right, let me share my screen. Okay. Okay. Hope everybody is doing great. Right. Attendees are still coming in. We'll start in the next minute. All right. Okay, without further ado, let's start. Okay, guys, formal good evening. Everybody's topic is thematic investing in two mega trends, cloud computing and solar energy specifically. All right, so I'm Ethan from Investing Note, and I'm the moderator for today. So of course, joining us, we have two special guests, Adrian Chiu and Mark Po, right? So let's, before I go further into their introduction, let's start with Adrian, right? So of course, Adrian has done quite a couple of webinars before. He's probably no stranger to many of our audiences today. So Adrian is actually a vice president at CSOP Asset Management. So a lot of industries, right? Adrian, you can say hi to the audience.
Hi, Ethan. Yes, I think we lost you for a while with the internet connection, but great to be here. Great to be back. Good evening to all the audience who.
Hello.
Hi. Yes. Better. Yes, much better now.
Yes, better.
Yes.
Yep.
Okay. Thank you, the audience, for taking time to join us tonight to discuss the two mega trends going forward for the next long-term future, I would say.
All right, awesome. Yes. So the next guest with us, we have Mark Po. So Mark Po is actually based in Hong Kong, and he's the research director at China Galaxy International. So Mark has over 20 years of experience in this equity research industry, right? So he actually also covers different types of sectors as well. So, Mark, we're looking forward to hear from you later. So you can say hi to the audiences.
Hi, everyone, and thank you for joining the webinar today. And hope that I can share my experience and also the investment idea to all the participants.
All right, awesome. So now that you know our special guests, speakers, so let's move on, right? Okay, so standard disclaimers, guys. This webinar is not to induce anything. This is all for educational purposes. Okay. Same goes for this as well. Okay, let's move on. Okay, let's set the stage right? So when we had this idea of looking at mega trends, right? I was talking to Adrian the other day. So Adrian actually brought up these two mega trends that he is interested in as well. So the first being cloud computing, right? So let's set the stage right. Globally, a lot of enterprises, especially tech firms, use cloud computing to scale their businesses, and improve their productivity, right? Even for massive consumer brands like Netflix, Disney Plus, also use the engine of cloud computing to actually provide the services to the end consumer, right? And if you can see at the on the left, right, according to Gartner, right, during this COVID-19 crisis, right, so there's actually a forecast to grow the public cloud services to great heights of close to 20%. So I would say that maybe you guys if you're watching Netflix or Disney Plus like myself on the weekends or even on the daily basis, you're probably contributing to it unknowingly, right?
Yes.
So the next mega trend is actually solar energy. So of course, you probably know that solar energy uses energy from the sun or from light sources, right? So of course, globally there has been a lot of push from governments and organizations, to reduce carbon footprint, and they are moving towards green energy, right? So solar energy is an inevitable form of green energy that it's going to be part of our lives, right? Not say even right now, but the next 10 to 20 years, right? So without further ado, let's move on to the first cloud computing, the first mega trend, which is cloud computing, right? So we have two experts here. So I'd like to ask on behalf of the audience, what is cloud computing in detail, right? Adrian or Mark, you guys want to share?
Yes, please let me go ahead first. Yes. So essentially, what is cloud computing? It's actually a delivery of service, computing service, including servers, storage, database, networking, software that provides analytics and intelligence over the internet. And when we say cloud, it's not the one right in the atmosphere, but cloud as the internet is a cloud. And this is actually helping enterprise around the world to have faster innovations, more flexibility in terms of resources, and also to grow and to scale economically. So cloud computing, the three advantages of cloud computing is that they provide three forms of flexibility. You can use it time flexibility, you can use it whenever you want. Geographic flexibility is wherever you want to do it, and also resources flexibility is however you want to use it, right? So a classic example is that right now this Zoom is actually an example of this beauty of cloud computing, right? I can use it. I can use it whenever I want to set up a webinar meeting, and then I can just send out to anyone around the world globally. I don't have, and I don't have to come up with an app that requires our audience to download just to attend this webinar, right? What I do is just click the Zoom link, and they can just come into this webinar, and we are all here gathered around virtually and discussing about megatrends. So this is what the purpose of, what's the advantages of cloud computing. And having said that, cloud computing comes in three forms, right? Infrastructure as a service. Now, some of the names, household names that we are aware of is actually like Amazon, Alibaba Cloud. We have used Dropbox, we have used Google Drive. So these are actually some of the examples of a cloud computing using the infrastructure as a service. Having said that, there's also second form is platform as a service. So like the Facebook they're using is actually categorized as a platform as a service. Now, Ethan has actually mentioned some names such as Netflix, YouTube. These are software as a service. So it's just a software that you just download and you provide the whole suite of service to you. This Zoom meeting is an example of a software as a service kind of cloud computing. So to put in layman terms, right, if you want to sell pizza, right, traditional method is actually you rent the kitchen, you buy an oven, you tap your oven to the gas, you buy raw materials such as the dough and the toppings, and you hire a cook to come in, and then you flip the pizza, you cook the pizza, and then you sell them, right? That is what most of the enterprises is doing right now. They have their own in-house IT, their own in-house programmer as well. Now, what I meant by infrastructure as a service is that the kitchen, the oven, the gas is actually being taken by someone else. You just have to bring in your own ingredients, your dough and your topping, and you get a cook. You come in, and then you cook it, and then you sell your pizza. So it's actually a reduction of cost. You can actually, the chef can just come in and cook whenever they want. Don't have to worry about rental and space like that. Now, platform as a service, it's even like, you just bring in, it's actually more or less, they provide the kitchen and the hardware and the dough as well. You just bring in your special ingredient, your special topping for the pizza, and then you get a cook to come in and with the secret ingredient, and then they will just cook the pizza as of your favor. Now, software as a service, just like this Zoom meeting, right? It's actually, they provide the whole platform, the host. It's like a supermarket, and then you just go in to buy a frozen pizza already. So that's what I meant by, a service as a service, software as a service, platform as a service, infrastructure as a service. So these are some of household names. It's actually everywhere around us, and we just didn't know that they are all actually running on, cloud computing. So again, like this Zoom meeting is actually an example of a cloud computing that we are doing right now. The next slide, please. So cloud, why cloud is actually gaining popularity? Because it's making it safer, cheaper, and more efficient. Now, the traditional method is actually, the enterprise have to set on-premises kind of establishment of hardware, right? They have ongoing costs, like, they have to maintain servers, they have to hire developers, they have to apply fixes and patches for their version that's actually may not be applicable to the existing outside world right now, right? So it's actually very labor intensive, very cost intensive for them just on the old business model. But just with cloud computing, any business will just say, hey, I need this formula, can you provide me X, Y, Z? And then you just pay an ongoing subscription fees, let the cloud computing experts set up and provide this solution to you. So three advantages is actually like, so you just pay on demand. It helps enterprise to reduce capital expenditure, and you also get to scale, what with that reduction of capital, you get to scale economically, right? So it's just like, you just want to go to point A to point B, you just go into a taxi or you get Grab, and you just pay the fare. That's what's relevant. That you don't have to pay the whole taxi, right? You just want this part of just need for this ride, you just pay for the fare. So that's what I mean by, cloud computing provide this kind of advantage. Efficiency, right? Let's focus on the business itself. Again, right, for me, I'm doing sales. I'm actually talking about asset management. If you would, I'll crack my brains hard just to set up, oh my God, with the pandemic right now, how do I get my message across and things like that? But it's very easy for me right now to do the message, to just pass my message across to a wide audience globally by just using Zoom. Sign up a Zoom account, set up a Zoom meeting, set when and where, and then you just send the link to your targeted audience. So that's very, very effective, right? And having said that, it makes the data more safer in a sense. This recording is recorded, right, Ethan? Am I right to say that? It's being recorded, right? So it's actually being, it's being saved up. It can be put up, it can be reused, it can be put into a video of a library of videos for further reference going forward. It's the same thing as well. Like enterprise can actually, store this, whatever that's actually being done right now, and then store it into a server of a cloud, and then they'll provide a backup service, like a backup service in terms of this disaster recovery and business continuity, make it easier for them to maintain such backups, right? So with all the have I just mentioned that, it has actually provided a lot of breakthroughs for not only the tech firms and also the old traditional firms as well. So for tech firms, like I want to go back into like, Disney Plus and also Netflix and Zoom. This is how they use cloud computing to provide a breakthrough. These companies do not have to own the infrastructure, right? They just tap onto the companies that are going to speak later. You just tap onto their cloud computing services, and then they would actually provide the service to the audience itself. So cloud computing provide a breakthrough in terms of infrastructure, a bottleneck bottleneck infrastructure breakthrough for them, for tech firms. Now, for non-tech firms, right now, as you know, like for example, like finance, right? I'm using Zoom right now to pass my message because I couldn't meet clients. A real estate agent, a friend of mine has been, couldn't meet clients during the circuit breaker. He has been, recording YouTube videos of the property, put it up to YouTube, and then, it's much efficient in that way because the agent don't have to schedule meetings, right? You just put it up there and it can be watched by a wider audience in that sense. So a famous one in Singapore will probably be the Property Lim Brothers, who have been using their YouTube videos to promote landed properties and everything. And with that, as and when clients could just use YouTube, which is also another form of cloud computing, to look at the property. And it has been very, very useful for this circuit breaker at the moment. The next slide, please. So this is back to Mark. Yes.
Yeah, this is as a research angle, trying to helping the people to looking at the supply chain or the overall cloud computing cover which area. Actually, I'm trying to synchronize as Adrian talked about IaaS, PaaS, and SaaS, or actually IaaS even cover some of the component like Intel CPU, NVIDIA, GPU and whatever. So we're trying to help the people to look at the whole cloud computing, not just the Google and Amazon. And as I said, like component, server, equipment, optical fiber, they are fall into the so-called upstream and the middle stream that we're trying to say like the PaaS, trying to help and operate the platform for running the on the hardware, and then provide a layer for the downstream application to run. And for the downstream application, why cloud computing doing so well? Because we can do our work on mobile, moving around, on PC, on even in the future on the smart car, that they connect to the cloud computing, that we can communicate, we can store the data. So that's trying to have a framework. And bear in mind, it's a long supply chain and it's difficult to analyze different subsegments, and definitely help from the professional or trying to join our webinar as many as possible, that we can provide more information. And next slide, please. And I think at the very beginning, that's Adrian mentioned the IaaS and why IaaS or why the upstream being more important, because in terms of the market size, in terms of the dollar value, the IaaS should be the largest portion, which I mentioned, including the server equipment and also the data center that is already supporting the layer overall. And as trying to break it down, in terms of the IaaS spending is talking about 200 billion, according to Gartner estimate for this year. And bring about the, in China case, it's also like talking about close to 200 billion renminbi. And if you look at the chart in China side, the growth CAGR in last 10 years over 20%, that I think is outperformed so many industry already. So that's I think as the global or in China, the upstream is really the eye-catching or the sizable trend, and that's we want to highlight that this is the backbone or the underlayer to support all those applications. Like, I mean, without the good connection or without good server, we can watch Netflix or Disney on a very smooth and high quality. And bear in mind, even without the good connection, our webinar can't go smoothly, and I think you guys can hear my voice clearly. So that's why we say the upstream will be quite important. And next slide, please.
All right. Thanks, Mark and Adrian, for sharing about giving us an audience what a technical breakdown of what cloud computing is. So I think the next question on our minds is why cloud computing, right? So what are the areas where cloud computing can grow beyond our imaginations, right? So let's move on. So can Mark and Adrian please share about this as well?
I think the COVID-19, and sorry to say that it's some or so many people being suffer, but to the cloud computing, the COVID-19 is really the trigger or the catalyst. That I think even already mentioned, even under COVID-19, we saw quite a significant increase in the public cloud spending this year. And I also put down the number in last year. Actually, last year grew just 6.3%, but for this year, it will grow close to 20%. And because due to the lockdown or due to some kind of restriction, cloud computing provide an environment that's trying to connect the people or trying to overcome some of the difficulties, and also trying to improve the efficiency even without COVID. So this is really the industry benefit from the event like COVID, and even without COVID, because of the benefit that we already realized. So we don't think it will change. So that's going back confirm or reiterate the thing that the cloud computing is the megatrend that it will not reverse. And that's again for the China side, we see some other name trying to grow up and benefit the trend. And I think Adrian will talk about his global view on the some of the example why cloud computing will offer an investment opportunity to the investor.
Thank you, Mark. Peter, next slide. Yes. So yeah, I mean, to know what's the trend, probably have to have some evidence from the past. And cloud computing was like like Mark has mentioned, was actually being categorized and very popularized due to COVID-19, when physical interaction is actually being limited by the pandemic. Now, Amazon, right? Very popular tech name. We believe that we knew that they actually. I mean, when we talk about Amazon, we believe that it was an e-commerce platform, a tech firm, right? But they were the first mover in terms of providing a cloud computing kind of platform. And this is actually built in-house for their e-commerce business. And also from that, they started off their cloud computing business by the name of Amazon Web Service, or we call it AWS for short. And we established in 2002, right? And that was actually the first ever instances of a cloud computing setup. And having said that, gradually, AWS actually grew really fast and really huge, established itself as a comprehensive cloud computing kind of service platform and ecosystem to clients from various regions and various industry. Right, in 2006, they launched their first product, and then that's where they set up private cloud for enterprises. And it grows leap and bound. It grew leap and bound as well. And now AWS, Amazon Web Services, it is the pillar for Amazon business right now. So in just last year, due to the pandemic, AWS contributed about 12% of Amazon's revenue, and about 59% or close to 60% of their operating profit. And having said that, this has been a strong support of Amazon stock price. Because of that, cloud computing has been the driver for their profits. And I could see that in terms of the operating profit is about 54% per year during the same period since 2013. The stock return has actually have come about 35%. All this is made possible due to the early adoption of cloud computing within their business model. The next slide, please. And you can see that a lot of this so-called the IaaS has been adopting Amazon Web Services for their business, right? So according to a website by the name of Intricately, say that Netflix spends nearly $10 million each month and using AWS as part of their cloud computing and server needs as well. Airbnb is another example, which was listed last year on the New York Stock Exchange, on the American Stock Exchange, right? When it first started, they actually faced some technical issue by setting up their own, infrastructure internally. But within the first year, they switched it to Amazon Web Services. Ever since then, it has actually grew leap and bounds as well. Disney Plus has actually, say that they prefer to use AWS, Amazon Web Services, their preferred cloud partner for their streaming services. So this is an example of how Disney, Disneyland, and the Marvel heroes and everything. That's how they started off a traditional business, adopted cloud computing, and that's how they actually began to stream, the libraries of videos, old videos. That's how they monetize the library of videos that they have. They just let people rewatch it for free with a small fees being paid to them as well. And having said that, Disney saw a 39% increase in download for their application in terms of their apps. 1.1 million new users. This is actually according to Bloomberg 2-3 days ago, and this is due to the famous Loki Marvel series, and due to that, using the old library to profit from that and then generate new movie contents, and getting more and more people using their app to stream and to get access to newer movies, because right now we can't go to movies, right? So you just pay a small fee to Disney Plus, and we churning out with new Marvel series. You can see that has been a driver for Disney Plus as well. Next slide, please. And having said that, Microsoft has been rejuvenated by cloud as well. Back there in 1999, the market cap for Microsoft is actually $600 billion. Back then, they were the world number one due to the PC era, right? And then then they go through the lost 15 years, right? More than a decade. 15 years they lost. They tried to enter into the mobile internet era. They try to enter into the internet space, right? They come out with 2006. They came out with a media related kind of a software by the name of Zui. And then it's actually withdrawn them from the market already. It failed, right? The 2010 they want to launch a mobile phone, the Windows phone, right? Also within 7 years it has been removed from the market as well. So in 2009, their market cap fell to $150 billion, due to the lost decade, right? And having said that, in 2006 they started to adopt the cloud computing services, right? And you could see that the revenue grew 24% year on year in 2020 last year due to the pandemic. Operating profits up to 2%. And I think earlier this week, it was announced that their market cap is actually reached $2.2 trillion, which is as big as South Korean economy. So these are actually two great examples how technology companies are benefiting from the cloud computing. Cloud computing is here to help enterprises to grow such digitally, such as Disney with Disney Plus, helping new industries and new companies to disrupt and emerge. So example would be Netflix as well. Yep.
Thank you, Adrian, for sharing. I think, and Mark for sharing. So I think to put it this way, I think a lot of the software and the apps and the technology we use, the underlying infrastructure is actually cloud computing.
Yes.
It's undeniably that, right? Yeah. So let's take the focus, to China, right? So, I'd like to ask you guys, what about China's cloud computing industry?
And I think Adrian share his view, or he highlight two global leaders. And I would like to talk about what had happened or what is the cases in China, given that China should be the second largest cloud computing market globally, even develops slower or later than US, but we see the Chinese government being more active in terms of the cloud computing development. And actually we call that Chinese government used to release a 5-year plan. And we have the 14th 5-year plan being released this year. And actually cloud computing always at the top priority of the 12, 13 or 14 5-year plan. And then you guys can see on the table, the Chinese government policy, not just pushing the so-called the internet or cloud computing as at the software side. Actually, start from 2013, it's already promoting the broadband network, trying to make sure the cloud computing will run on the fast connectivity that we see from the lower down layer, and then develop some of the platform or the using the big data helping the cloud computing. And the latest we have the like in 2017, we are actually the so-called 3-year plan for the cloud computing development. And then up to last year and this year, we have so-called the new infrastructure policy or initiative in China. On one hand, trying to boost the Chinese economy last year to overcome the impact of the pandemic, and also trying to grow the internet economy, trying to narrow down the gap. As Adrian highlight, the US side doing quite well, and we have so many great company in US, and the Chinese government or Chinese company trying to lowering down the gap, and that's with support from the Chinese government. And next slide, please. And this is the number that even we see the high growth before 2020, and the growth will continue to be quite significant. That's the CAGR should be over 30% from 2020 to 2024. And as we highlight at the very beginning, the IaaS will remain a major portion of the cloud services market in China, unite with globally, which account for like 68% of the total. And the next bigger portion should be the SaaS. That should be the end application, like Adrian mentioned, like Netflix and Zoom. And later, when we talk about the individual company or individual subsegment, we'll be more focused on the IaaS and the SaaS side. And bear in mind, even China is smaller than the global, but the number is talking about close to 300 billion renminbi in 2024, as I mentioned, is growing at like over 30% CAGR. Is also one of the fast growing segment globally and also in China. And next slide, please. And on that number, we see how significant the growth of the IaaS. Like last year, the fourth quarter, the spending or the market grew like 62% in fourth quarter of last year, year on year. And that's, yeah, we see the market being dominate. Alibaba, Huawei, Tencent, Baidu, they already account for a major portion of the overall IaaS segment in China. And definitely Alibaba is the largest, over 40%. And last year we see the change. Tencent used to be the second largest, but because of the government push or because of Huawei push, that's it become the second largest, like close to 20% of market share. Tencent like 15%. Baidu a little bit lag behind, but still account for 8%. But for the others, we have the telecom operator and some others. But that we are not that worried in terms of the competition, because the market, as just the previous slide mentioned, going like 30% CAGR. So we still have a fast growing market for all the players. But in some sense, we don't think the market landscape will change. That the name here, they will still be the leader, but we will see which one. We will talk a little bit more on individual company in the coming slide. Next slide, please. And this is we're trying to help the investor or the participant. What are the company doing and how they fit into the framework like IaaS, PaaS, SaaS, and even in terms of the equipment. And we have the really bottom part, the equipment, really the server and the CPU or whatever for providing the computing power for the cloud computing. So we have a group of really leading player, and for specifically for the Inspire group, this is the world largest server supplier. Even the CPU is buying from the Intel, but in terms of the PC shipment, this is really the global largest. And the unit spender, the company have the JV with HP, also is one of the global largest server supplier. And for the in the middle, the green part, we have the so-called the Google, Microsoft equivalent in China. We have the Alibaba, Tencent, and Huawei, and some other smaller cloud or IaaS provider, uCloud, and Baidu. And we also have the data center, GDS, Sunny Vision in Hong Kong. And for the upper part, we have the software or the so-called PaaS supplier. But this segment, as we highlight, is become smaller. We as the IaaS and SaaS. As SaaS, we have the end application. For most of the name I highlight here, we have the 2B, not like the Netflix or Disney Plus. They are more to see. And I will mention a little bit about why not to see why to be in China in the coming slide. Next slide, please. And these are the IaaS name, and why not we mention this, and just want to mention a highlight because recently the Chinese government has the antitrust investigation. That's this company listed here. They're all good and great company with the huge market share in terms of the IaaS and PaaS, but just because of some other issue that they may face some kind of near-term impact. But that's really the name. As I mentioned, we will not see the change in the market share, and they will still provide the IaaS services in China, and they will still be the leader in China. So that's I will not go through because this group of name is really famous. So now next slide, we're trying to highlight some of the more specific name. To be, as I mentioned, the government have some kind of concern on the 2C side, but in terms of to be, helping the corporate or helping improve the overall efficiency is really encouraging. And for these two companies, the Waymo and iClick, the interesting thing is they utilizing the Tencent WeChat platform to help the corporate low matter MNC like Procter & Gamble and Shell. If they have the business in China, they have to do the CRM and they have to do the marketing well. So they are using the services offered by Waymo and iClick to grow the business on one hand, and on the other hand to do more customer service. And they are smart in the way. I think the WeChat is one of the good or the most popular communication tools or platform in China. So they are leveraged on the big name and grew their business. As we put down for Waymo, they grew their revenue by 37%, and this company being one of the university company of Tencent. Tencent actually is one of the major investor of this company. And for the cloud computing person, we highlight the so-called key account, which is the bigger corporation in China. They are more adopting the third-party app to help them to grow the business and manage the customer, like growing 20-30%. And also like the bear in mind, even Douyin also generate some kind of traffic through this Waymo. So this is one of the I trying to say a good cloud computing company. For iClick, the interesting thing is the MNC I mentioned, Procter & Gamble and some other thing. Actually, they are using the iClick application to manage somewhat. They manage their business in China using the WeChat platform. And as we say, the company also growing like over 20%. And that is one of the two good, we call it SaaS company in China, suffering from the smaller company to bigger MNC. You see the need of that kind of business in China. And also one thing mentioned, the iClick, another internet company, Baozun, which helping the MNC to open the online shop or online services in China, also signed the agreement with iClick to cross-selling their services. So we see the 2B side is actually going quite fast. And next slide, please. And we have another tool, so-called the cloud computing name, and Kingdee. And I think all along the company being treated as a the SAP or Oracle equivalent in China, and the company rolling out the cloud services in 2015. And this is really one of the fast growing company. And interesting thing is the company start from the SME business. And actually we see the company gaining the market share in the SOE segment. And think about the SOE, even the SOE in China using the cloud computing more actively because of the need to improve the efficiency, because of the need to improve the internal control. So this is another company we think look interesting. And the VSD, the interesting angle is, we have too many cloud. We have private cloud, we have public cloud, we have hybrid cloud.
Yes.
How to manage different cloud easily. Yes. So the company acquired a smaller company called White Cloud. They are helping the corporate to manage different type of cloud into one system. Yep. So we see the trend, and the hybrid cloud or the cloud management is quite popular in overseas, but it's still at the early stage. So we see the potential from the 2P side regarding the cloud computing. And these are the four names we think, apart from the major internet name, that are worth to have a look regarding the cloud computing development in China. So next slide, please.
Yeah, I mean, Mark, it was really good in terms of covering the whole China market. I think I have to agree with you that, you know, technology innovation with a certainty, right, in terms of cloud has been provide a structural change to cater for, you know, to help the demand side for the supply side as well. So I think there is in terms of cloud computing, we believe in our house, we believe that, and in the future potential growth of cloud computing is huge, is tremendous in a sense. Why do I say that? It's because, right, you know, like you said, Mark, cloud computing, you know, global IT expenses for cloud computing is only 4%. You know, most of the enterprises are still running an old traditional method of running their own in-house servers and, you know, getting their own developers and you know, IT specialists to run their own system. Now, as the popularity and more people aware of the advantages of, like, hey, it's very easy to just operate a Zoom, a layman like me who could just, you know, sign up a Zoom account and then, you know, try and pass all the geographic kind of obstacles, I can actually reach out to more people and more clients easily. So I think with that benefits, I think, you know, there is right now there's a huge potential for cloud computing. And we could see that, you know, there is this index that tracks, you know, the global cloud computing technology, right? We call it the SoActive Global Cloud Computing Technology Index. You could see that it's actually outperforming the NASDAQ as well. It's actually outperformed S&P 500. So you could see that, you know, there is, you know, very huge interest and investment into cloud computing in that sense. You could see the valuation of cloud computing companies growing as well. It's generated about 226% due to back testing. Just a disclaimer that, you know, past performance does not guarantee future performance, but you could see that there is a consistent outperformance over the traditional kind of indices. And, you know, and like you mentioned, there is a macro growth engine going on right now. There's unstoppable trend of global digitalization, right? We forecast, like, I think you mentioned that, you know, it's going to grow in terms of, you know, IT expenditure for enterprises will grow about 6.2% for this year alone due to the pandemic. And according to the Business Harvard Review, right, in terms of US, they have the most comprehensive powers in terms of cloud computing. They led in terms of this trend. You know, and I agree with Mark. China is growing at the fastest pace in terms of global cloud computing. You could see that more and more are plowing into cloud computing. So this is a undeniable and unstoppable trend of global, becoming digital, and that will definitely benefit cloud computing.
Right. Thank you, Adrian and Mark, for sharing.
Yes.
So I think this question is actually rhetoric because I think you actually gave it away just now, the index. So, for audiences who were listening, right, is there any index, that tracks the key players? Okay, the answer is actually this so active global cloud computing. So I'll let Adrian to, talk about it.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. So yeah, I mean, we find that this active, this bespoke index is actually pretty okay. I mean, not say pretty okay, but it's actually very comprehensive in the sense that it covers both, not only the whole supply chain or cloud computing chain, but it's tracking both US cloud computing enterprise and China as well, or Hong Kong listed cloud computing. So this index includes Google, Oracle, Amazon, Salesforce, Alibaba, Tencent, Zoom, Microsoft, Adobe, Baidu, Shopify, you name it all. There's 50 names within this index that tracks all these different forms of cloud computing services company. It's worldwide. Worldwide. Yeah. So 80% US listing and 20% Hong Kong listing. So it provides, it tracks, not only the established and successful US cloud computing giants already, but it also tracks the growth potential of the Chinese cloud market as well. So what it does is actually this index, the underlying component stocks needs to be very liquid. Traded at least 1 million for over a month, and we traded over the last 6 months, has been very highly traded, right? 50 names inside, big giants, both China and US as well, and it's actually done quarterly rebalance on the last business day of February, May, August, and November as well. Yep. Next slide, please. Yep. So like I mentioned, global leaders, right? The US with the largest market share. You could see that the SaaS, the service as a software as a service, has been very highly adopted, and it has been it's growing in popularity in US. It's forecast in 2025, 85% penetration rate of the software as a service going forward for US market, right? On the China, agree with Mark again, is that they are the late comer, and they are actually with the highest growth rate as well. Just to echo what Mark says, even though the lags behind, but it's growing really, really fast, driven by the initiative by the Chinese government to expand that, and then like that Mark mentioned, even the government, the SOEs are actually using cloud computing to manage their own software as well. Next slide, please. So just a little breakdown, not only these two different countries. If I were to break it down in terms of the industry, right? So the three giants, dominate the infrastructure and the platform as a service. So they call it the three A's. Amazon, Azure, which is Microsoft, and Alibaba Cloud. Now, what we like about this index is actually, both Amazon and Azure, Microsoft only has clients, very focused on clients between UK and US itself. But we believe this index is pretty diverse in a sense that because it covers also China and Hong Kong clientele as well. So this is actually in terms of the infrastructure and platform, these three A's within this index is actually comprehensive. Now for the software as a service, actually more diluted, more diverse. Just to echo what Mark says, there is many forms of software as a service for many different kind of disruption. For example, Workday is actually used by Citibank for human resource management, like communication will be Zoom, and Palantir, right? It's actually a big data AI firm that's actually very famous right now. If you just need a name and a license plate number, he will do a deep search, and you can find all the medical records or communication records, criminal records. So it's actually they are, I think the huge client for Palantir is actually the governments, and usually governments provide very lucrative contract for such special needs, in terms of surveillance. It actually got very it has actually did very well in terms of the pandemic because they're using this system just to track traceable for the COVID-19 and stuff like that. So you could see that this is actually these are some of the driving forces going forward. So yeah, I mean, this is actually the index that we think is actually very comprehensive.
Well, Adrian, I think this index has a lot of thing, from the top to the toe of cloud computing. So it's basically it covers everything. So I think in our previous conversation, I mean, you mentioned that you guys have an ETF that actually tracks this index, right?
Yes, we do.
All right. So I think for the purpose of audiences, right? So this ETF by CSOP is actually called Global Cloud Computing ETF. So the ticker number is 3194.HK. You guys can actually check it out. So it's 3194.HK. All right. Just do a quick Google and everything is there. Right. Let's move on.
I think this page, actually, I just want to say what is the legs of the cloud computing. This is concern about the so-called securities. And I saw one audience ask about any concern or the IP protection issue in China. Actually, this slide somewhat answering your question. This is not just China. As long as we have put some of the thing or everything on cloud, definitely the securities, not just China, globally, it will be the issue or concern going forward. But this slide I put down here that the industry already foresee that kind of trend. So different type of company working on it. And for the answer, actually Chinese government trying to avoid that kind of security issue or IP issue by cutting down some of the illegal action. So I think concern, there is always concern, but we see things being progress on the right direction. So that's I think we shouldn't be that over concerned about some kind of wish and the industry player or government, actually they are doing the right thing to avoid that kind of issue.
Thank you for sharing, Mark and Adrian. So, let's move on to the second mega trend. So, this half of the webinar, we'll be talking about the first trend, cloud computing. So let's move on to the second mega trend. So, earlier, I think Adrian and Mark both mentioned about, Amazon and those big tech giants, right? So how this is going to be interesting for you guys is that all these tech giants, when they do cloud computing, essentially the energy source that powers the cloud computing is gonna need to come from somewhere. So there was this Wall Street Journal article just 1 or 2 weeks ago, right, that actually stated that Amazon and other tech giants are actually rushing to buy up renewable energy sources, right? So of course, like what Adrian mentioned earlier, there's actually some top-down approach where governments are actually looking at how to ask these giants to reduce their carbon footprint in terms of energy usage. So let's move on. Adrian, perhaps you can share with us.
Yes.
What is the big trend here?
Yes. So thank you, Ethan, again. Right. Thank you for setting up the stage. Right. Data centers needs a lot of power in terms of electricity to power their servers. They also need it to cool their servers as well. And I think besides this article, recently we found out that China actually banned crypto mining and stuff because this uses a lot of energy as well. Yes. So and most of the energy within China are using coal, right? And they have the target like, hey, I want to be carbon neutral by 2060. You guys are not allowed to mine in China, and that caused a huge fall in Bitcoin prices. But they are focusing on photovoltaic. What is photovoltaic, right? Photovoltaic essentially means electricity generation from the energy of the sun, right? It's actually converting sunlight into energy. Simple as that. It's just converting sunlight into electricity, right? And it's going to be the cheapest source of electrical power, renewable power going forward. Why do I say that? Because if you want to build a hydro dam, right, you look, for example, what happened to the Three Gorges. You need to move people, you cause damage to Mother Earth, you kill off some kind of, you disrupt some wildlife just to build a dam, right? And it's very expensive to maintain a dam because if it needs to be maintained properly, else there will be disaster, right? Nuclear, right? Fukushima, another example, nuclear waste and things like that. And if you talk about wind power, depends, you have to be at, you need to set up the whole big wind tower just to generate that as well. It's very costly, but we believe that solar is actually the cheapest. Even I would like to say free, but due to, if in the financial world, you can't say free. But it's actually a free source of energy from the sun. 2 minutes is just if you convert 100% of 2 minutes of the sunlight, it's actually equivalent to the energy to charge our phones, to run a laptop, to all the EV cars. If you can harness that, right, I think that will eradicate fossil fuel going forward. And we as human are actually innovating, right? This is actually the whole supply industrial photovoltaic supply chain, right? What is actually just the brief gist of it is actually, I would like to turn attention to the conversion efficiency. What I mean by that is that if you 100 watts of radiation, 1,000 watts of radiation from the sun, and we are able to convert that to 20 watts of energy, right, of the solar panel, we call it the conversion efficiency of 20%, right? So back then earlier was only 1%, but right now we are able to exceed conversion rate of up to 20% already. So China has been constantly innovating to efficiently convert sunlight into electricity. And we believe that every 1% increase in terms of this conversion efficiency, right, you bring down 5 to 6% of the cost in terms of generating this electricity from the sunlight. Next slide, please. So they came out with make 1 yuan 1 kilowatt dream, and it coming true because you can see the chart at the bottom here, right? Right now the price to generate 1 watt of electricity through sunlight is actually in the range of fossil fuel, so it's getting very affordable at the moment. So, and can be deployed anywhere. It's a brighter future than hydropower and wind power I just mentioned. So the technology is actually becoming more mature. The cost has plunged comparing to the range of traditional coal and fossil fuel kind of range already. And just to emphasize, like set a stage, right? The international government and China wants to say bye-bye to fossil fuel and reach carbon neutrality by 2060. Get prepared, be prepared to say the last bye-bye to the last drop of fossil fuel. Uruguay 2030 carbon neutral. Iceland, Austria 2035 carbon neutral. Japan, South Korea, the EU zone, US 2050 carbon neutral. So this is actually a international initiative to be carbon neutral. All right. So right now, we track the performance of the photovoltaic industry within China, right? Because it covers the whole PV chain. And you look at the light green colors, it's actually outperformed the photovoltaic industry index, right? Actually outperformed the traditional CSI 300 already. And it provides names such as Dongqi and things like that. But investors that's not within China will not know these companies, right? But these are some of the big companies that's actually within the PV industry change going forward. And this index is pretty good in the sense that there's about 50 stocks within this index. The weighting is up to 10% per stock. And this index is actually rebalanced semi-annually. What's good is actually there's this name called Jinko Solar, which is actually listed in New York Stock Exchange, right? And it's actually one of the largest wafer production for PV chain. And it's actually applied to be listed on the Chinex, which is A shares. And then this, they will be actually included into this index. So this index is actually growing bigger, and the component stocks that's tracking this index within this index is actually getting larger and more comprehensive as well.
All right, thanks, Adrian and Mark, for sharing. So, the next thing on our minds is, where are these industry leaders for, photovoltaic and solar energy?
Yes. So, pardon me, just one. Okay. Yes. Now, direction pointing to China, right? They are the largest. Due to the recent news going out from China, they are actually ranking first in the world in everything. It's the largest PV market going forward in terms of output of the raw material. They are number one for the last 10 years, right? They achieved output for the raw material essential for solar energy panel. It comes in the largest ever in 2020 last year. In terms of output, in terms of, we are the first for 14 years already in terms of the module output. Installation, again, has been going up last year as well. Capacity growth, that means installed capacity growth has actually, grown about 60% year on year for last year as well. And also in terms of generation via PV, PV is actually photovoltaic. Now the largest, it has actually grown year on year as well, about 17% as well. So in terms of adoption, in terms of installation, production, China is ranking the first in terms of this industry. And on the supply side, right, A-shares, companies, Chinese companies actually dominate the whole photovoltaic or PV for short chain, right? In terms of upstream, in terms of raw application, most of the companies are actually listed on the China Stock Exchange. So they dominate the whole industrial chain going forward. Yes. Next slide, please. Yep, and you can see that they are continuing to grow in terms of their revenue, right? Their revenue has actually grown leaps and bounds since 2018. And in terms of the performance of the sector, it's actually expected to increase further. Now the revenue is actually expected to come down, but in terms of their profit will continue to improve. This is actually due to policy support by the Chinese government and also international incentive as well. They want to do more solar energy, and then that's where the demand comes. China A-shares companies will continue to provide the end product to these countries. And so having said that, with further reduction of the electricity generation costs going forward, we believe that going forward, the expected profitability of these companies will continue to be sustainable. Yes.
And this slide just want to highlight China is not just big in terms of the output and capacity, and we're trying to say China also lead the R&D or the technology improvement that on the PV module efficiency by type cell, that we're trying to saying that actually we see why PV or solar energy. Solar energy is the one area we saw the technology improvement in terms of the efficiency. Like at the early stage, we use polysilicon and then mono, and then latest we have the so-called HJT, which can achieve 25% efficiency, which one of the key parameter mentioned by Adrian about the efficiency. And also we have larger wafer in China in 210 millimeter wafer, and now we are talking about just 160 something. And also we have the process of producing the silicon being commercialized in China, the FB method, which is the Siemens old method. HJT is trying to combine the silicon and the thin film, and that's I want to say the solar energy have the technology improvement, and it's happened in China. And the latest, I think, if you guys can check the latest development, one of the hottest topic in the PV is really the HJT. As I said, combine the solar and silicon with the thin film. Thin film used to be a hot topic. Go back to 2008, and because of lower efficiency, it just nobody talked about it. And now we see the coming back, but with the combined with the silicon, and we highlight one company doing the equipment, producing the HJT with partnership with the Tongwei. Later, Adrian will talk about what is Tongwei. So that's we trying to say on this way, and then going back to Adrian.
Yes, thank you, Mark. Yes, so I just want to dive deeper into the two big component stocks within this index. So LONGQi is actually one of the largest supplier of the newer raw material called the monocrystalline. Now it's actually, it actually put a huge portion of their of their revenues into, 5 to 7% of revenue into R&D. It has actually about 858 patents already obtained in total. So what we could see that in terms of output, right, it's actually, shipment has been going out. We forecast that in last year, right, we believe that, the shipment in 2020 last year. Last year, right, in the annual report, will definitely come up more by 50% in terms of domestic consumption. So we believe that capacity changes in LONGi going forward will continue to experience explosive capacity growth going forward. Yeah. Next slide, please. And then yes, Tongwei is actually a rapid expansion of the silicon material and battery. It has been doing very it's actually provide a total in the first half of last year already. They have actually a total of 44 PV power station built with a capacity of 2,100 million watts of generation, and the gross profit for this generation is actually about 50%. So it actually brought very huge economic benefits to this company, Tongwei. Yes.
And I think some investors may looking for stable growth with good dividend yield. And this Senior Energy is one of the private-owned solar energy operator in China. That's why this company, because we as the PS, the company have the lowest gearing and going like 20-30% capacity, and almost the distribution policy is quite high, and the investor can trade it as the equivalent yield equivalent in US, that you pay a high dividend and because of the capacity growth and turnover growth, and then the dividend amount also growing. And for those looking for stable growth business with the exposure to the renewable energy, I think this is for those investor looking for more safer and less cyclical growth. This is the name that we want to highlight to the investor.
Wow, that's interesting, Mark. So I think both Mark and Adrian has shared, a couple of stocks that basically I think a lot of audiences and Singaporeans here will probably have never heard of, because they are so deep in the the end of this revolutionary solar energy, right? So they're so deep inside that, and they are in China, and we probably never heard of them. So I think Adrian, can I ask if there's any ETF that actually sort of tracks the index?
Yes, we do have an ETF listed on Hong Kong Stock Exchange that tracks all the top dominant A shares companies.
BV companies.
Yes,
So I think
yes.
earlier you showed the slides, right? It was pure domination by these Chinese companies.
Yes.
So I think for people, those audiences who like to know, right, this CSOP photovoltaic ETF is actually, the ticker code is 3134.HK. If you guys are interested, go check it out. There are basically domination by these Chinese companies, right? Once again, it's 3134.HK, right? Let's move on. So I think where both Adrian and Mark has done a very good job in covering in detail on what both cloud computing and the solar energy industries and companies actually do, right? So it actually got a little bit technical as well. So let's do a recap, and let's have some key takeaways that if you weren't paying full close attention earlier on, you might want to listen to this, right?
Yes, again, China is the second largest cloud computing market in globally, and driven by government investment. And we also see the increasing demand, as we just mentioned. Even the SOE have to invest in the cloud computing to improve the internal management efficiency and also grow the business. So we still see the trend, even globally and even in China, is investable, and it will not change. And the old-fashioned, like the on-premises or buy and go away business model will not be there. And the subscription, one is built up, then we turn it from a cyclical. I mean, the market used to think the IT industry is cyclical, project by project, but now turn into the cloud computing is more recurrent, and it's more predictable. So that is the overall trend again globally, and think about the market used to complain about or question about the sustainability or the continuity of some of the Chinese IT name. But once the cloud computing being going, so we see the Chinese IT company, the growth will like more predictable or more sustainable, like their peers or like their equivalent in the US. So that's the trend. As said, it will not change and we will continue. And better to look at or better to trace those leading player or those can benefit from the trend. And that's all from my side.
Thank you, Mark. Yes, so for me, it's actually for cloud computing, it's actually a growing segment in the technology sector. Forecast to have, continued sustained growth, because of COVID-19, we see a lot of disruption going forward in that sense, right? The future of cloud computing will continue to be in the several billion-dollar industry, and then Mark did mention earlier, it will actually grow into newer industries such as AI innovation, blockchain, automated driving and things like that. So this actually is going to be part of, the expansion of the technology sector. Now, the index and the ETF did mention actually provide diversification in a single trade, gain access to established US cloud giants already, yet also have expose the investors to higher rising growing potential of the Chinese companies. And having said that, to swing across to solar is that government initiative, even technology companies understand that for their business to grow, to achieve carbon neutrality, they need to look for newer, cleaner and newer renewable energy. So we're entering an era of carbon neutrality going forward for next 50 to 60 years, right? And solar is actually one of the top preferred renewable energy because it provides environmental protection. It's very safe. It doesn't provide any waste at all. It's in abundance, right? The sun always shine on any part of the earth for 12 hours. It's cheap. I wouldn't say it's free, but I think the cheap is a better word for it, because the sunlight is always given for free. And having said that, the ETF and the index that we mentioned in this webinar provide easy access and diversification in a single trade to China's photovoltaic industry or solar industry. The A-shares companies are actually the global photovoltaic leaders. That's all for me. Thank you.
Awesome.
Yep.
All right. Okay. Here, marks the formal, end of the webinar. Of course, right now we'll go into the Q&A. So let's take a look at the questions. All right. Okay, there's a person, by the name of H. Is it possible to get a copy of the slides and the replay? Okay, I'm going to answer that live. Of course, for the copy of the slides, no. But yes, we do have a replay on YouTube, which will be broadcasted by tomorrow. So we'll keep you posted on that. All right. So there's this question by Lisa, right? So Lisa is asking, is there concern of data protection, intellectual property protection of cloud usage in China? I think Mark actually covered a little earlier. Yes. So maybe Mark, you want to reiterate that as well?
I think actually if you guys read the news, actually Chinese government trying to minimize our voice. And actually, we see the some of the so-called app, if they have the so-called SDK tracking the data or the some other thing built into the app itself, it's somewhat being banned. And that's we see the progress. And I think, as I said, the securities is not just a concern in China. It's also concerned globally, and that's why I put down the page about the cloud securities. This is all the participants, all the company they are looking at in the future. So I think don't think no securities or no IP protection in China. So we are progressing, and bear in mind the one of the reasons for the antitrust investigation is really trying to avoid those internet company overusing personal data, which is part of the so-called cloud or internet securities. So we think the government, not just in China, globally, they're doing the right thing to avoid. So I think don't over concern about this issue. And this is, again, not just China. Globally, we have it. We also have it. And think about some of the US company being hacked by the hacker. So that's don't over concern. My comment on that.
Awesome. Thanks, Mark, for sharing, and Lisa, you got your answer. So we are a little bit short on time, so I'm going to ask the one final question, right? So this question is by Freeze. So Freeze is asking, is the rise of cloud computing going to affect the HDD market? I think maybe by HDD, we are talking about the hard disk market. So, is there any opinions on that?
I think definitely on the consumer side, because of the cloud or because of using the SSD, actually the perception that hard disk demand is declining. But think about on the cloud side, especially what happened to Amazon and some other things, they have to back up, right? So actually the usage is high. I mean, for the data center, we have the hybrid, the SSD or the hard disk. And I think if you guys search, even Facebook using hard disk and DVD disk hybrid as storage. So on one hand, we have less usage from corporate or individual, but for the usage of the backup is still huge, and that's why the hard disk name like Western Digital and some other name, they're still doing quite well because there's still demand, and that's issue. And even for financial industry, we are using cloud, but we still have to back up. So that's we still have the demand. Even may not going fast, but it's not disappearing. And the hard disk is still one of the cheapest way for long-term storage.
All right. Thanks, Mark and Adrian, for sharing on our audience's question. So guys, before you guys leave, right, I'd like to, show you guys our exclusive partnership with CGS-AMB. As you know, CGS-AMB have there's a new product called Prosperous. Do check him out, prosperous.asia. Just do a quick Google. And especially for investing node users only, you get if you open an account, you just use this referral code Invest and Prosper. You will get $20 credited into your Prospero account, right? And when you make 3 transactions, I think probably they mean by 3 trades, within 60 days, you receive another $30. So I think what's so different about Prosperous as compared to other brokers is that they do have some, redemption for investors in terms of, experiences like martini tasting, afternoon tea, fitness classes, and more. So if you're interested, please do scan the QR code, right? Just, take out your phones and just do scan the QR code, right? Okay. So we come to the end of the webinar. Thank you all for joining us. And if you have any email related inquiries, right, please do drop Adrian an email. All right. So Adrian, once again, he's the Vice President of Sales and Product Strategy at CSOP Asset Management. And of course, thank you, Mark, for joining us and sharing your insights and knowledge on the 2 different megatrends. So Thank you everybody for joining us. We hope that this webinar was exciting for you, and we'll see you in the next one. All right.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
All right. Awesome.
Good evening.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.